Um, I'm Jessica Kinnison. I am a writer here in New Orleans. Most of us tonight are here from New Orleans, except for Kit, who's out in California. I am a writer, but I've also worked with homeless folks for a little over 8 years now. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about unity as we get started for that reason. I'd like to read just a real short poem and then talk about it a little bit to illustrate what unity does. Deuce and a quarter. Cat, rat, umbrella, 8, eat, run. Elle's reading her homework to me in the car. She's got 20 years on me, easy, 13 kids to my 0. The sun shines while it rains on Rampart. Ever heard it's the devil beating his wife? I ask. Yeah, because she burnt his food, Elle says. At the Esplanade light, a disposable razor glistens next to the streetcar line. A shining blade of wet men sleep on benches all the way to Canal. A woman with a shaved head paints her toenails. My auntie used to say that all the time. She burnt his toast. It's in the Bible. I don't think the devil has a wife, I say. Go read it, Elle says. Soon you'll be able to read it to me. Yeah, you're right, she says, but I can tell she doesn't believe it. Do you believe in the devil? I ask. Nah, Elle says, and I'm comforted. A truck cuts me off as we get close to Canal Street. That be the devil right there, Elle says. Elle points to another car and says she used to have a deuce and a quarter just like that. Why is it called that, a deuce and a quarter? That's just what it's called, Miss Jessica. Do you believe in hell, Miss Elle? We in it, Miss Jessica, we in it. So that's a little experience I had with one of my favorite clients several years ago. And I pulled it out because she's now housed in what we call permanent supportive housing. And she has been for 3 years. She goes to literacy training. She was learning to read, so she goes to literacy training across the street at the YMCA. Still, during COVID times, they have some programming for her. She's learned to read. She has part of her rent paid by Unity every month. And then when she moved into her apartment, we went to the Unity warehouse and got her what they call a starter kit, which is deodorant, shampoo, conditioner, sheets, blankets, towels, all the stuff you need, mop, bucket, all the stuff you need to get started in a house that costs money that you're trying to kind of pull together somehow. So we got that. We got some lamps and rugs and those types of things. We housed another client a couple doors down from her, thanks to Unity, and he fixes her red beans and rice every Monday, 3 years later, and stewed pork chops on Fridays. And neither of them have contracted COVID. They're both over 55. And all of that is thanks to Unity's continuum of care. So since we have so many folks out of town, Unity is the continuum of care for people living in homelessness here in New Orleans. They get money from HUD essentially and distribute it to smaller providers in town to try to do the work like I do, case management work. But a lot of stuff falls through the cracks, so that's why they need donations. HUD only wants to pay for the door and the lock and the walls, but they need things like shampoo and deodorant and lamps, mop, bucket, that kind of stuff. And that's where the donations go to that warehouse that I take so many folks to get that starter kit. So it's so important, but certainly not a requirement. So please check it out. I see that Fayla's put it in the chat again. Feel free to donate, please do. And yeah, so this is a benefit for Unity. Again, so important, and we'll mention it again later on. But for now, I'd like to get started with the reading. I'm honored to be here and really excited to hear new work from these poets. So the way things are going to work tonight, we'll have 3 poets read one after the other, Kit, then Rodrigo, then Roger. And I'll introduce them each as we go along. So starting out here, Kit Robinson is a Bay Area poet, writer, and musician. He's the author of Thought Balloon, out from Roof in 2019, Leaves of Class, out from Chax in 2017, and 20 other books of poetry. Kit's essays on poetics, art, travel, and music may be found at Open Space and Nowhere. which I think is the best word to end a bio I've ever heard, and nowhere. Check out his link in the chat, and please take it away, Kit.
Thank you, Jessica. And thanks everybody for coming out. It's great to see you all in your Hollywood squares. I've got my family here and some old friends that I'm really glad to see, and a bunch of folks I don't know. So it's wonderful. I'm excited to be here. I want to thank our sponsors, Fence, Lavender Ink, and especially thank you to James Sherry and Deborah Thomas at Roof Books, who published my book, Thought Balloon, which you can order on the link that Fela has put up in the chat. I donated to Unity of New Orleans this morning. I encourage you to do so as well. They're doing really important work. I'm going to read today a kind of poetic diary that I've been writing for the past year. I'm calling it Quarantina. The poems are dated, but I'm not going to read the dates, which stretch from March 17, 2020 to February 24th, 2021. The first one is called Crowds Are History. You take your life in your hands every time you go to the store. We think about things like supply chain disruption while watching the market crater. The sky is so beautiful, fluffy white clouds in endless air with no events to look forward to. We have to reinvent each day. Halfway between poetry and prose, the lightweight notion of a permanent record flies away home. Does philosophy track with the times, get to the bottom of things? A man wavers on an uncrowded bus, signs and waves, journals breeding storage, the life of Riley, one day at a time. Crowds are history. Hunker down for the long haul. We take refuge in screens, the articulated we in sunlight. The oceans circulate patiently, breathe carefully, flatten the curve, a time to refrain from embracing. There is nothing better than that a person should rejoice in their own works. Distance learning. The virus is trying to tell us something by way of birds, those songs of theirs, in the absence of jet noise, construction, and traffic. The virus is trying, very trying. The clouds, though, are beautiful. The sky, more blue, just outside the door, more beautiful than before. The economy is crashing down on all, the heads of state, the denizens of the street. Any restart must be slow and new, a new path to global well-being. Then might we learn the lesson the virus is trying to teach us. Then might we honor the lives lost, then make things right in their names. Get out. Get out, death. Get the fuck off my front porch. Is evil an enormous, menacing hornet? Or is it a right-wing thief not wearing a mask? The hours weigh heavy. Who does not love a tangerine? Joy is volitional. It comes to you courtesy of hard practice. What did the violin say to the flute? Climb up on my shoulders and reach for the stars. This poem. This poem is incredible. You should immediately memorize it and tell it to all your friends. If you read this poem over and over, you will be better able to read and understand other poems. Any poem. Life goes on and off. Death goes off and on. Shit happens, just like in this poem, which is like an elixir or vaccine. Sometimes this poem is like overhearing a conversation in the next yard, a moment of relaxation in your otherwise busy day. Other times it's more like thinking about something, then thinking about something else. It never stops, even when interrupted by a passing train. In that sense, this poem is immortal, insofar as it is always on the move, to no particular end. When you dream a poem, the poem is often odd, weird, asyntactic, or wild. This poem is totally normal. It teaches one how to live normally under the most abnormal of conditions. Put one foot in front of the other is how the ancestors put it. They even put it into this poem so that anyone would be able to see what this poem of our life on earth is made of. This next poem is called Yemaya. Yemaya is a deity. She's the goddess of the ocean in West African and Cuban cosmology. And she's also the mother of the world. And her colors are blue and white. Yemaya. Since you gave birth to the world, we can never get to the bottom of you and must content ourselves with your shimmering surface that laughs in the sun. The sky is reflected in your blue. You surround us. We long to live by your side. In waves do you raise your skirts, in dance both day and night. Because you generate all of life, we adore you. Things as is. Totality is about jurisprudence, hair, and music, with commas inserted to keep different things apart. I walk in the footprints of my teachers, kick off dialogue and encourage my students in questioning ways, sit for a trim in the kitchen, play long sections of repeated patterns for others to play over later. But first, a visit from my family, mothers and daughters in the great chain of being. But first, a conversation from last night's dream about the future of Latin jazz and the question, why don't you like old music? Reorganized atoms of the primordial South, continental disruption of the genes. Each new expression is a breaking open of all that has come before. The elements of life break down and recompose, the way the letters of the alphabet form different words. Words like these that trip across the page, pages in the book of life we share and forget to return to the library of the earth's thin surface. When the flute plays, the birds respond. Is that not evidence of a prior order? The space between these lines permits movement. Without void, everything would be chock-a-block. Let's call ahead and order hamburgers. Walk in the footprints of those who came before. Appreciate old music and grow our hair down feet first. Our feet firmly planted on the ground of being, we shuffle the letters in our first and last names to form 60-second videos on TikTok for others to lie on their beds with later. Pre-selected beats underlie the figures our fingers trace in undeclared space, stretching back through time to the original dancing fool. Wet paint. I listen, you listen, and all we hear is noise. The shock waves of a massive explosion in a foreign port. The constant rumble of hydraulic evacuation down the block. A shrill siren connoting lunchtime at high noon. When will we hear the sounds of silence praised on transistor radios back in the day? Complain about the noise on the road to Boston or be consumed by it. That's life in the big city. Coffee to drink, can't hear myself think, click on a link, wind up in the clink. You might as well spread a sail over a number of people and call it the sky. Whatever you think, it's more than that. Windows like this, times many. What we hear, what we see, what we feel is mutual. A world made up for multiple reasons, life and death situations, honorable mentions, left behind as the world turns over a new page. When out of doors, tread lightly. Don't get out of the boat. Observe the letter of the law of averages, not to mention the sign, wet paint. Early times. The sky is getting farther away. Says who? Says Zeus, him and Hera, the original helicopter parents, baffling us mortals with smoke and mirrors launched from on high. By afternoon, my nerves are shot, said my friend. Awakened at 6:30 a.m., guy sawing catalytic converter off neighbor's car. Hey man, what are you doing? What did Whalen want? McClure made a monad of a mollusk. Kiger questioned a quail. Spicer listed to starboard. Kaufman captured fractals just for fun. Rexroth rode roughshod over America. Tchaikovsky cherishes a cloud in the sky. Hell no. Where there's smoke, there's causality, going all the way back to before, when the backbone of the American economy arrived from Africa, when Crazy Horse went to the white man's fort and never came back, a bayonet stuck in his back. Before, wild World War III, guns, fire, and plague sat down to tea under a red sun to rough out a plan for the consummate consumption of any and all land. The other night, Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back by the police while getting into his car where his 3 sons witnessed the crime. Today, the NBA players canceled their playoff games in Orlando in protest. I'ma cancel this poem. This here shit is more important. Premier Etude. The mind moves as water moves, in waves, wind at their back. The mind moves as fire moves, in lines, under heavy smoke. The mind moves as earth moves, spinning through darkness and light. The mind moves as the body moves, on 2 legs, 1 step at a time. The mind moves as the planets move, elliptically around the sun. What is a tree? What is a tree? A tree is a premature book. In its leaves, I read the history of the future, more specific than you would have ever thought. What is a chair? A chair is an empty person, relaxing in part sun, part shade, to wind chimes touching in the breeze. What is a fence? A dead leaf in a knothole would have you believe in the inexhaustibility of phenomena. What is a line? It connects 2 points and droops a little in the middle to describe a shallow curve with no towels hanging from it in bright sun. What is a cone? A dirty orange traffic warning next to a concrete block with a white baseball cap, the base for an umbrella. What are flowers? Black-eyed Susan climbing over the fence, snow in summer, deep red geraniums at home among rocks, kids on break from Zoom. In a station, for Richard Manuel. A certain amount of time goes by while you are doing nothing, waiting for a train, as it were. There is a relaxed anticipation about simply waiting for the poem to begin. You are not alone. Your various readers are there with you, wondering what will happen when the poem gets underway, as do you. You feel a slight twinge of responsibility. Maybe they will give up and turn elsewhere. There are infinitely many elsewheres, but you are okay with that. The main thing is to be patient, cognizant of the fact that anything can happen in a poem, and probably will. The sounds of the city awaken our curiosity. Construction, transportation, and mining. Mining? Aye, mining the depths of the sea. The dream of our past lies on the sea floor, where everything is mixed up and spattered across our only recently awakened consciousness, already dispersed by a thick cloud of forgetfulness, if that's what you call it. Still, there is sun on a fence, relaxed branches hanging from an olive tree, a light breeze moving things around. Whole days might go by like this, and no one the wiser. Does the train arrive at the station, or vice versa? Who can clock their relative speeds? We know that all is in motion. Even the stock-still nutcracker in his colorful regalia circumnavigates the globe daily while hurtling through space. We're all just along for the ride. Meanwhile, have a plan, as a nice young boss of mine used to say, and execute against that plan as best you can. You may be clumsy or even MIA from time to time, but don't you worry, just keep right on. As a great poet once wrote, running around enough, it may be perfect. Now we are waiting for the poem to end. The people are many who are winterized under the sheltering sky. The sounds of the city are many, thoughts in circulation beyond numbers. This seems as good a place as any. And I'll read two more. This one is called 2021 Space Decameron. We are companions in the disaster. War, corruption, drought, fire, and plague. What else is new? What binds the eye to what's seen? My dream, a drink with Ron Carter. We're all astronauts now, living in a bubble with our pod mates. Real and imagined, as in Tarkovsky's Solaris or Sun Ra's Rocket Number 9. Space is the place we occupy and contain in equal and opposite measure. The eye contains multitudes, solitudes crowded with loneliness. If you had breakfast, clean your bowl. Emptiness is the mother of all. And I'm going to close with a short one called The 4th of July. Leaves of interdependence. Birds depend on air. Songs depend on ear. I depend on you. You depend on me. We are interdependable, like the flora and fauna, of whom we are a part, like mountains and rivers upon works of art.
Thank you, Kit. What a pleasure it was to hear your work. Everybody remember that the link to Thought Balloon is in the chat. Also, there was a lot there in that work. So if you have questions for him or that you want to pose to the whole group, please put them in the chat and I'll try to get to some of them at the end of our reading. So again, check out Thought Balloon. Thank you, Kit. That was just such a pleasure to hear your work. Next up, we have Rodrigo Toscano. Rodrigo's The Charm and the Dread will be out in the spring of 2021 from Fence Books. He's the author of 10 books of poetry and appears in over 15 anthologies. Rodrigo works for the Labor Institute in conjunction with the NIH, doing research and coordinating projects dealing with COVID-19 from his home base here in New Orleans. So welcome, Rodrigo. Again, information about Rodrigo's work will be in the chat and we'll be back with you after.
Thanks, Jessica. It's great to see everybody here. Wonderful cause, I think. Do give. These poems were written between March and August of last year, and they are from my new collection, The Charm and the Dread. Homo Americanus, freeform hollering at the Lit Conference in syllabics. No, we don't want you to breathe in, then out. No need to stand up, stretch out, twirl your wrists. Most assuredly, no incantations are being asked of you, not a single word. Know what, Jack, Jill? Scrap the 4 directions. Your identities and ours beside yours on a coat rack at the door, quite comfy. How much whacking can your piñata take? Yes, you stand on stolen land. You may now, zoons, methinks my station merits the ploy, which under these conditions is public, though you're planted on private property. We do acknowledge that, the conditions, the 1,000 directions not to take after this after party we call anarcho-tyranny uber alles, or simply the finance oligarchy. Please be modest, slithering on the ground, scooping up treats, subtracting from the whole our allotments of failed liberal schemes, coming into view as we splinter up. 2. Who won the prize? The prize among prizes. A prize of a prize, you might say, a win over one more prize to win, a prize won. Surprise. There's no prize for that, or for this. Piñata sticks swung blindly all at once is more to the point, bloody point, hobbling, stumbling onto the arena of culture, but was at a distance tracking it all, or in close, poetics as detainee marks it a fugitive in mind and gut. We were just about to jump out of here as the smoking debris began to cool before the dawn of a more centrist hook'em. But here we are, herding piss-poor students into the bare halls of career poet. There's exactly 5 things a prize can do. 1, it bestoweth wings to the wingless works. 2, it staunches today's systemic wounds. 3, perchance it payeth the rent. Golly. 4, it groweth wings on the fugitive. 5, it clippeth the fugitive's wings. 3, strategies recalibrating tactics kind of works. What kind of might not is you. Games abound this side of the barricades. One of them is self, as designed by you. But here's another piñata at hand, popped out from nowhere, perplexing, tempting. Fellow insurrectionists, lend an ear. Identity thinking stalls, hard reset. And bullhorn this all night long, publicly. Old universalisms pen us in where we mean to run with a new story. New stories reject catastrophizing, refuse a foregone tragicomedy, stage an alternative futurity, identity thinking stalls, hard reset. Blindfolded, homo americanus. Grab this trusty stick, grip it mightily, raise it high, and on the downswing, crack it. Now the bards scramble, now the bards bag up scraps of self, whose purpose they know not what, though it's arousing all this newfound pet. Okay, now I'm going to read two sonnets from that same collection. Insurrectionary. The day-to-day existence of people, if that doesn't change, then what is all this? These protests, these stances, rage, pieties, passionate words, eloquent poetry. What's the use of any of it today if tomorrow and many days to come aren't shaped differently, aren't lived differently? Which calls the question, what do people want? What do they want? Not just what they don't want. Let's list it. Let's study the list closely. And before these items are pinned to life, let's have that conversation. What is life? What kinds of life forms are we, all of us? And what's best for each and everyone here? Flesh. It's imperative we keep flesh intact. We don't want perforations, abrasions, or undue irritations marring it. We also want to guard coloration of whatever hue hones to its nature. The smallest capillaries must breathe free. When a breeze fans it, we love the perk up. When flesh grazes it, we love the perk up, the heat or cold of curiosity. It's imperative we keep flesh intact. Painters, if they ever make the comeback, might plumb flesh, flush out commonality. Poets, if they ever make the comeback, might suture flesh, restore integrity. This one's called Betimes, a rhapsody for activists. Betimes you stall, and by stalling, rocket. Betimes you're a dead bored worker. Betimes a devoted worker without deep purpose. Betimes you're a thrill-seeking slacker. Betimes a genius co-worker without peers. You chose this. You chose dialectical, wreck, sensational. You pounced towards direct, intense unknown. You've sloughed off crooked dick nationalism. You've blown up indolence, on some occasions, eloquence. Who can Velcro on a plasticized red wig when you want it? Who can supply you with bronze lion future beast of victory? Betimes you're a pre-pounce poet, posing as pouncer. Betimes you're a post-pounce as twitchy twitch. Not whatever, never whatever, but this. You're a spectral socialist savage. You're a spectral socialist civilizer. You're a spectral socialist dirt clod on diamond. Who can futurize the people without the trademark? Who enacts fire canister hierarchical reform? Betimes you carouse, and by carousing, arouse. Betimes you're hella, as they all say, cat with hiss and claws. Betimes you're a devotee to love slamming you to the ground. Did you really choose this gem? Art thou chosen? Are you ascending now towards free-floating domes in the sky? Have you handily sloughed off sultry stance nationalism? Betimes nationalisms offer services left or right. Betimes intra-nationalisms show a way out for a fee. Who can hyperspatialize the people without coordinates? Who enacts supersymmetrical justice reform? You're a spectral socialist bit actor. You're a spectral socialist stunt double. You're a spectral socialist diamond fleck on demon dung. Betimes you rocket, and by rocketing, stall. Betimes you stall, and by stalling, rocket. This next one's called The Revolution. Gray birds made of marble falling from the sky. Swamp oaks taking 2 steps forward, if you look closely. Levee water levels rising exactly by 4 feet. New bridges made of glass suddenly appear over urban canals. Storefront signages swapping places, making sense. Picnics 2 feet below sea level in the thousands. Girls with brown eyes rolling boulders into pyramids of gold. Girls with blue eyes casting steel hooks onto silver gates. Girls with green eyes forming a field of grass to skip on. Red, chromed out chopper cruising the streets, no rider. Purple sun painting 12 windows onto local birthing center. Hell, the word, the concept, scaring no children at this hour. Heaven, the word, the concept, wood cube and dank attic, rotting. 2-minute clip of brawny man battling an alligator in loop mode. 1-minute clip of young boy twirling brawny man in loop mode. Sundown, western breeze fanning ice tower evaporations. Blank stare of a statue on an iron barge seaward bound. Bats across a full moon portrait in a trash bin flaming. Canoe made of pure sugar gliding over asphalt streets at midnight. 30-second clip of diamond tooth baby in loop mode. Bayou bugs onto 4th generation since yesterday morning. Yellow birds made of polyurethane come to a consensus. 15-second clip of upside down city skyline. Justice, the word, the vision in an orange cloud descending, glowing. 7.5 clip of pencil frolicking on white paper. 400-foot mound of multicolored masks and panties toppling. Deceased couple with brass canes crossing glass bridge at dawn. Traffic barricades napping again, if you take a glance. This next one's called Brown Lives. Brown lives, the phrase as is, don't matter in Mexico. The shades are endless. Where draw the line? You'd go quite mad. What matters in Mexico is lana, cold cash. How much, how far, the flow, what things, what folks you gather around you. Of course, colorism thrives in Mexico, weighs in, tips scales. But saying and insisting brown lives, the phrase as is, as sacred is blurry, happy talk, won't supply the flow, the things, the folks you gather around you. The line, when drawn, would shift yearly, monthly. The haggle would matter to oligarchs a lot. The haggle would matter to academia even more. Brown lives, whole departments might thrive, service lines, blurring oligarchs, long game. Still though, colorism thrives in Mexico. It hurts, it works for some, for sure. Some families have winners and losers. It's important to confront colorism frankly, but lana Go see, take in, don't flinch, draws lines on top, down below, both sides make box. In Mexico, boxes matter, not lines that shift weekly, daily. You'd go quite mad, demarking where, jumping back, jumping over, vying to drag shit here to there and back, stuck in a box. In Mexico, decaled with Brown Lives Matter merch donated by happy oligarchs of oil, of telecom, of finance, beachfront empires, foreground to hillside slums, background to nervous middlings, frozen between undecided about lines, boxes, which matter and why, earning zeal, spending zeal to audit. Mexico lindo is necessary. The peso plunging today, 10%. This next one is called Männerbunde. And Männerbunde in Germany means sort of like men's club. Männerbunde, guns, shed-fuls of them, you'll see, will not be the deciding factor in the big shift towards hemispheric autarky. No amount of rounds and clips hoarded in safes will rewrite labor laws that integrate Canadian, American, and Mexican biopower around a vision of itself, protective, economically, expansive, culturally, interposed maps of watersheds, routes of produce, conduits of clean energy, lasered in on healthy work and stable housing. The big shift doesn't require belly-crawling sharpshooters, grown boy camps, Männerbunde, sing-alongs pining after dreams of becoming sovereign when all's entangled already, except not formally and equitably, set to a higher order, resource conscious, confident future, commandeering hemispheres, collective wealth, material and psychic, brave projection, bulwark against this anarcho-tyranny, faux nationalism, yacht excursion for winners of rigged outcomes, swamp monsters becoming great again, promoting shedfuls of ammo, camo, grown-up boy, lingerie, boudoir, Männerbunde, posing on towering trucks, performing sovereign when all's entangled already, but on a wobbly base with sideshows, gun shows, crouching, cowering, last gaps of sovereign kings, every man a serf, owning nothing. Not mineral deposits, not beds of technology, not downstream planning, educational, cargo, material, and psychic, oblivious to rising forces, integrated, autarkic, prosperous homelands to thrive in, where crotch grasping, gun toting enfeebled copes flicker out year by year as hemispheric power looks outward with straight backs towards other autarkic regions, working on integration of a higher order, looking outwards, mindfully negotiating globes, collective wealth, material and psychic, and yeah, a few museums of nation states and even kinky cosplay might be entertaining on occasion to remind us of the age of anarcho-tyranny and its camo lingerie butlers on a leash, Männerbunde. Thing and thang. Is the US a nation or just an economic platform? Because a nation is or can be an expression of its people. Platforms, as you know, support a ton of apps, but not all, and often not many at all. Nations, of course, excel at spinning origin stories that somewhat stick, actually too often stick too long. These days, folks are sick of platforms. They feel, but more than that, know the grift and graft. But also, folks won't booty hop for a nation, not for the past nor future, and for damn sure not now. All right. Some are nation after school drama types, never miss a chance to flame in public, funk out in private. Others are pure platform, all-day trendsetters, Brahmins actually prancing like Jack and Jill nobodies. Yet others, in idealist mode, strain to marry the two, nation thing and platform thang, triangle into circle slot. Problem is, Globo Bobo's diet consists of broken idols, shards of meritocracies, the bootstrapped scraps. Platform thang, overamp, promises a commonwealth of contiguous profile updates, hexagons into pentagonal slots. Nation thing, flustered, promises to calm anxiety, save cells from intermixing in golden wheat fields swang. Globo Bobo, or if you prefer Bobo Globo, plays it safe, defers to neither thing nor thang, but tabulates and waits. GB might well be progressive or regressive. No one can say for now. Poltergeist inside us. Jumpstart poems. I wonder too if jumpstart poems are worth it. I mean, poems meant to get at existential being itself for a moment, brief moment, stripped of social causality, not having to take a publicly recognizable position, not having to, massage an affiliation, but instead riffing on what's elementally human, what's fundamentally common between folks instead of about folks as proclaimed by folks. Jumpstart poetry that pivots around a few key words, words that for the moment, brief moment, hold the mystery, the puzzle of being in time on this planet. Or not even being on this planet, but wanting to. I wonder if jumpstart poems are a cop-out or a necessary moment, brief moment against cop-out, or maybe something in between, stuck, broken. I wonder if folks are almost always in between, copping out, not copping out, copping out, not copping out, but play it like they're one or the other, certain. I wonder if jumpstart poems even exist, and if they don't, whether they should exist. Poems that pivot around certain words like being, folks, mystery, pivot. And if they do exist, whether they wonder themselves about poems that wonder about not wondering, fending off the hounds of lassitude, indolence, and surrender, just long enough for a jump poem to start it all. All right, just 1.5 more here. Zoom reader. Square one, if you insist on knowing, has fucked squares 3, 6, and 14. Square two, not too hard to imagine, also fuck square 3, 5, and 9. Square 8, according to square 13, will soon be fucking square 5. Square 4, who could have guessed it? It took a hard pass on fucking square 1. Square 5, we somehow know fucked square 11 and 12 at once. Square 6, when factoring out variables, has fucked no square, but beware. Square 7, you can't not tell us hasn't fucked square 2. Square 8, blacked out, I intuit again, is fucking square 10, blacked out. Square 9, everybody knows is bent on fucking square 4 after 3. Square 10, we can extrapolate, would unfuck square 13 if possible. Square 11, according to the algorithm, might well fuck square 6, and soon. Square 12 in speaker mode drops a hint it fucked square 7 on mute. Square 13, the host just won't tell if square 5 might fuck me. Oh well. Square 14, we've come to a consensus, has been of fucking itself, poker faced. All right, folks, so winding it up here, we got 2 very shorties, Huddle and Inglis. Here's Huddle, a reverie on anti-COVIDicum soirees, or I should say post-COVIDicum soon, hopefully, in memories of those mixers, so to speak. Huddle. Mix it up, make it count, delight, folks, be delighted. Steer phrases, be steered and swirl, roust about, seek a huddle, spot a huddle, slink in, stick out, seek gaps, shoot them, spot walls, crash them, step back, make space, watch huddle, sidebar one, slip a shiny, receive well what rebounds, pocket insight, pocket wit, move on and swirl, seek a huddle, spot a huddle, slink in, say nothing, nod a bit, make it count, seek a signal, spot a signal, drop a shiny, kick it once, kick it twice, kick it thrice, scoop it up, toss it, receive well what rebounds, step back, make space, watch huddle, empty pockets, show empty, share empty, fill empty with shinies kicked around from nowhere to somewhere. And the last one is called Englisk. Done with you for the time being. Bayous, ducks in Creole French. Back and forth in Castilian. Laid off cooks in Tagalog. At water's edge in Celtic. Stifling humidity in Vietnamese. Stifling prospects in German. Construction continues in Mandarin. Ducks paddling by in Neapolitan. Back and forth in Nigerian. Minimal ambulance howl in Greek. Porsche flies by in Punjabi. Homeless placard flaps in Romanian. Back and forth in Bantu. Teens in jeeps in Persian. Picnickers gather in Hebrew. Ducks bobbling in Malaysian. Invisible 4G pulse in Norwegian. 3 F-15 streaking in Korean. Back and forth in Somali. Reeds random swaying in Arabic. Ducks take flight in Russian. Beer cans snapping in Chitimacha. Dark clouds gathering in Homa. Bayou clearing in Choctaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. I think it's worth noting that here in downtown New Orleans, a thunderstorm amped up. His first poem went all the way to crescendo and came back down and is now quiet again. So that's saying something about that excellent poetry. Thank you, Rodrigo. And last but not least, my dear friend, Roger Kamenetz. Roger Kamenitz's most recent books of poetry are Yonder, Lavender Ink, and from Lavender Ink in 2018, and Dream Logic from PURH in 2020. He wrote The Jew and the Lotus and the History of Last Night's Dream. He leads 18 colleagues teaching natural dream work. You can find him at www.kamenetz.com. And you can find all of our readers tonight in our chat and check out their work there. So let's welcome Roger.
Thank you, Jessica. I unmute myself. I'm happy to do that. Thank you to Rodrigo and to Kit, to Jessica, and to everyone, our sponsors. It's been a wonderful, great time putting this together, and so happy to see so many of you and friends and family, and what a great event. So thank you all for coming. So I'm going to read a poem called The Double Room, which is really written after a poem by Baudelaire from Spleen de Paris called La Chambre Double, which essentially could mean a double bedroom. There's a line in the beginning which kind of states the theme for the next few poems. Un chambre qui ressemble à une rêverie, which in English I think is a bedroom that resembles a reverie. Take it from there. I live in a double room. In one room, night is a drug. In the other room, night does not exist. I open my eye in one room. And in the other room, my eye closes and sees all that the first eye does not see. I see through the ocean in one room that all is made of waves. I see through the window in the other room that all is bright appearance. Peeking in through the window from the outside of one room, I see inside my own mind in the other room. I'm asleep in the first room and darting lights puncture the dark. In the other room, I observe clouds prowl, pounce, slide, and ponder. One darling cloud has the definite shape of a fish unidentified in the book of fish. The fish book hides in the other room among all books. I live in both rooms. In which am I truly awake? One room calls to the other to say, you are asleep, have always been asleep. When I wake from a dream, I'm never sure that the bed is real. So this next one is called The Revenant. And the song maidens who will do a guest shot in this poem are from the Song dynasty of 10th to 13th century China. The Revenant. If I come to you in a dream, will you still recognize me? I may be the little dog yapping underfoot to test your annoyance, or I may be an ocean without water or salt, so you might swim in me in longing. In this life, I may often be invisible to you, the weight of a shadow on the ground. Feel me with your thoughts. They are small wooden hammers covered in felt. You can hear notes in your sleep. Alone, I'm a minor key. When the kiss of the hammer skips a beat, the stretched string mourns in its pegs. I am just the other side of all music, like a song maiden behind a screen of willows. So this poem, Encounter with the Muse, is from the book Yonder that Bill Lavender was so kind to publish a couple of years ago. In the logic of conditioning, we identify with one race or another, one victim or another, one perpetrator or another. Looking down my pants for a fixed sign of gender, I hear the word wallop. Clouds split in half with lightning down the middle. Verses recited by old Chinese poets in the upper loge, so old they are sexless. One poem stroked there became a heavenly writ, daubed on walls and tortoises, gold script on black varnish. In dream logic, we pour like smoke from one body to another. You meet a woman who says, I listen to water. She is old, young, youthful. Her face shimmers. The lightning market crashes. I hear in water the movement of all things I can step into. I lie in the riverbed and she dreams against my mouth. Wallop, pillow, willow, pallor. So this next one, I guess, is the last of the ones about dreams, and it's called The House of Reinvention, which I think is what the dream is, and it's for Tracy Hasfold. There's a quote, I don't know where I got it, probably Wikipedia, but in the language of flowers, coreopsis means to be always cheerful. The coreopsis it looks sort of like a black-eyed Susan, but it's a much more colorful reddish color. There in the house of reinvention, I might become not another, which plagues me, but who I really am. Just down the wrong turn is the house of correction, where my mind has been dwelling for so many sentences. Out in the open courtyard, the children have been singing, the air full of their voices as a meadow of coreopsis. Someday I'll join them among the wildflowers that grow in byways and along edges of fences. The cruel guards laugh at me with their philosophies. Their teeth have been replaced by steel. You said choreopsis, but meant corpses, and the wise have explained the children's song. The guards can never leave the house of correction because they work there, but I can leave quick as a dream. I close my eyes and hear singing again. Meet me at the back door of the house of reinvention. We can slip in easily. In the courtyard, the chorus sings and corpses dance underground. Their crowns brush the roots of the coreopsis. So I think music's going to show up in the next few poems. And the title of this one, the poem's for my mother, and the title is Did You Practice? Which probably relates to the sorrows of piano lessons. And of course, the answer was really no. But here's the poem. You have to be willing to make mistakes. My thumb on the middle C wandered over to Venus. Soon I was playing Yellow Smoke, breathed to intoxication. Just beyond toxic, the left hand turned to the bag of the B. One sweet taste in Beethoven can't be 2B flat. I rose up on a sharp that lifted me into an indefinite equation. Solving for X, I hammered out a chord between peace and Germany. White doves left over from the armistice squawked their way through turbulent chords that rose from the well of the piano. Then we whirled around in triplets till the organic chemistry of the moment came to a rest, suspended high overhead in silence, like a god who decided, just be. Just B, that's all, then C, then D, then C. I heard all those notes. Then they became me. Then they flew on beyond me. So, in addition to being wonderful poets, as you all witnessed, both Kit and Rodrigo are also tremendous musicians. This particular poem, Chords and Discords, is for Rodrigo, who introduced me to the 16th century keyboard composer Claudio Marullo, who's mentioned here. The song Dynasty, I have to add, is when foot binding sadly became widespread. That comes up a little bit too. The harpsichord as a murder weapon has not yet appeared in the mystery. Instead, it floats like an orange boat under a storm of fingers, takes a beating, but always calms to even sound. It is a weather partly cloudy, but with no idea of an ending. Notes fall on the skull like spring rain on blossoms. There's no crying at night in a harpsichord. It plucks its notes like pulling flowers up by the roots. Certain pieces sound better unhammered. The harpsichord gathers clouds of notes into a storm. I feel slightly seasick listening to Marullo. Oh, Bach, I am drowning. When will you come back? I await your regular waves as they return upside down. A harpsichord makes a coffin for the seasick. To fit inside it, I would have to break my back, the way song mothers broke their daughters' arches. I hear the maidens alone at night, sobbing for the sake of their beautiful shoes. So this poem is called The For Life, and this and the previous poem are both in the newer book, Dream Logic. The For Life. Think of all the days you spent before conception. Time was not of the essence, at least not yours. Non-existence had its own fruit, gray apples on gray trees. The fruit tasted of air, and you had no tongue. You had not yet gathered a self. You were an anonymous source. Some people heard you faintly in their pulses. The stars did not come out at night. There were no thoughts, just dots of yellow in the gray. It is what it is was not yet. With so much future, you had nowhere to be, but fingertips called you. The longing to touch holds the pain of an addiction. The symptoms of you were scattered widely. Motes in the sun, puny ants in the leaves. The notes of a sympathy waited to bring a chord. As soon as you arrived, nothing would stop being. In would rush a world of color. The mother touches your tender skin and smells your sweetness and knows she is real. So I guess my mother wants to be in this reading because this poem, Dragonfly, is for her. Animals eat here, some so tiny the world is but a stone, hunger a pinpoint, they drink a dew. The garden throbs with them. Iridium, bits of rainbow, needle greens, penetrating blues. Who named them darning needles, nightmare horses, names born of fear? Their veined wings, a double set, beat back the air of occasion, become occasion. They keep distance from nectar. They snatch mosquitoes, tear their wings in the air, their head all eyes. How could an insect, a dog, have life and not you? They snatch elegy mid-flight, hover with glints of loss. Unlike dragonflies, memory stings. The adventure of who you were lives in me. And when I go, who will carry this envelope? Who read the letter inside? So these last poems share a word, so you can listen for it if you like, and there'll be a quiz afterwards. So the first poem, I was talking to Moira about this. It's called the Jerry Lewis story. For some reason, she thought there were many people who didn't know who Jerry Lewis was, or I don't know. I was very young when Jerry Lewis was really a big deal, but made a big impression on me. So here it is, the Jerry Lewis story. Being Jerry Lewis, I would have no trouble cutting Paris with a fork. Unbelief would disappear and error would be no more. I would fire once and Dean Martin would fall through the sky. He must have been hiding in the sky. Of all the movies we ever made, the ones where I kissed him stand up. The side of a fork is harder than the edge of a knife, yet the Eiffel Tower split like the bones of a fish. Did you ever see the movie where I became mayor of Paris? The French loved me so much they pinned medals on my chest right at the nipple. Yes, that hurt, and I cried all the time, but everyone kept laughing. That hurt more, and they laughed harder, a loop of tears and laughter. That's the movie I should have made after Dean left. Now that the tears have dried, it all looks different, a still photograph with a matte finish. You bring the dust and I'll bring the ashes. I see belief disappearing, so unbelief must be next, or is that an error? I live in my own thoughts, my own dreams. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each in a sawdust barroom in Paris. Alas, no one gives you medals for that, but it still hurts. Alas, I am not Jerry Lewis anymore. I am the whisper of Jerry Lewis. So this poem actually began in Paris also with my friend Laura Mullen, a poet for whom it's dedicated. I'm sure many of you know her. And we had a kind of interesting conversation about editing poems. An eloquent wind rearranged the silverware, forks tip to top, spoons top to tip. The rattle of the drawer shook music from the silver. Congratulations. I hurried towards the sound. The wind worried me past all comfort. Where were the knives? Allegations of a stronger wind pushed wicker off the deck. The realism of the wind struck me. I became convinced by a branch flying into my mouth, by a rose scratched on my cheek, by the green blood of a broken dahlia. I sought shelter under my mind. I lay down in congratulations, in realism. The words assembled themselves top to tip to top. The letters composed themselves in their galleys. The storm rewrote the poem, scratching out lines, crossing them, moving words up and down with arrows. I saw vectors flash. I felt knives point at me. The wind moved counter the clock, stopped. If this house stands, it will be a living room. Living roomer, said the dying wind, dying down. So this is the last one I'll read. It's called Theory of Gravity. There's as much mystery in a fork falling under the table as in how I got to be here to drop it. How a being wholly composed of slowed down light could become so opaque. I fetched the dropped fork, but how my fingers knew what they touched, what process of electricity in a cell, what snap of spark across a synapse, which long-necked neurons woke and thrilled while others slept, would be a bowed head in a day-long prayer where every day is holy, every moment epiphany. Fork returned to fingers, lifted in the air, the food that fed the nerve, the thoughtless thought that acted without me to retrieve the fork. What intention is or isn't, how Aristotle said the fork fell because of love, how sometimes I think he was right. Thank you. I want to thank everyone involved, Kit and Rodrigo. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Fela. I want to thank our sponsors, New Orleans Writers Workshops, Lavender Ink, Roof Books, Fence. Please visit them all. And if you can, please donate to Unity to help the homeless. All the folks who have read and all the links of our sponsors are on the chat. Thank you again. I'm going to give it back to Jessica.
Wow, what a series of readings. I think Roger's poetry about his mother always makes me flat out for a minute. So just taking a deep breath here. I think Roger covered it. Thank you for all your time and for your attention. If anybody has any questions, we do have a few minutes. You can put your questions in the chat. I don't know if it was that kind of night. It was, I think, a very reflective night and also full of so much amazing poetry. So we'll give it a minute if anybody has any questions. I hear a lot of beautiful work. Thanks for the reading. I saw a lot of folks talking about the different types of poetry we heard tonight, philosophical poetry, activist poetry, turning it up because we couldn't hear it over the thunderstorm that I think personally Rodrigo's work brought up for us. And then ending with Roger, which is always a time for reflection. Roger, will there be a link to the recording that folks can access? Do you know that at this time? I don't know.
I muted myself. Okay, so we are going to post it up on YouTube once it's available. And it's going to be on, at this point, I have a YouTube channel under my name. So Roger Kamenetz, you should be able to find it. I'll tell you what, I'll just send out an email to everybody who is here and they can have the link and we'll post it on Facebook and get the word around. So if you're interested in having, enjoying it all over again or listening, because when you hear things, so much of what we heard tonight, I think definitely bears rehearing, more pinata smashing and definitely more fun. So I really enjoyed it and it was great to listen to my friends. Kit dubbed us the 3 R's, which I think is great. And let's ride off into the West or whatever that means. So anyway, thank you all for coming.
Roger, briefly, how do you know Kit?
Well, Kit and I went to college together and we were poets together. We knew each other as poets and friends, going back a long time. And in those days, before the NEA ruined everything, we made magazines by a bottle of wine and a mimeograph machine and stapling poems upside down and passing them around wine stained all over campus. And I think we had a lot of fun and I kind of miss those days. I think that was a wonderful era before I think the government ruined it. You know, not entirely. I mean, I'm glad we make such beautiful books now, but there was some kind of freedom then that was kind of beautiful.
While we're at it, I'd like to shout out to a few of our Yale classmates who are here today, right now. Alexis Kraslovsky, Michael Waltuck, and Alan Bernheimer, I think, is here.
Right.
Yeah, there you are. Hi, Alan.
Yeah. So many friends are here tonight, students of mine and friends, and it's just wonderful. I appreciate everyone coming out. My first publisher is here, Meryl Leffler, who published Dryad Press. So shout out to Meryl. And I see Erin Kelly, who was a student in my class many years ago, and Mona Lisa, also a student of mine. Okay, I'm dating myself. I see my sister.
Hey, Roger, what was the name of your last poem that you read?
It's called Theory of Gravity.
And can folks find it in your most recent collection, or?
No, it's not in any book.
Yet to come.
I'm open. If there's a publisher out there who wants to publish a book, it's ready. Or magazine, whatever. Anyway.
Well, for what it's worth, it sounds like you guys are still channeling some of the same ideas you were channeling back then, just in a new way.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, where's Rodrigo? We want to say goodbye to him as well. We've got all four of us in here.
Yeah. It's great to see everybody. A lot of old friends, new friends. Yeah. Storm. It really rained yesterday, didn't it? So.
Well, and thank you for bringing us the thunderstorm tonight with your words. So again, all the links are in the chat. Sounds like Roger's going to send links to everybody after we're finished, including a video or a link to the video in YouTube. Don't forget the New Orleans Poetry Festival is coming up on April 1st, which is virtual readings and events and workshops daily for the whole month of April. So super exciting. I think Kit is on a panel in that as well. And Unity for the Homeless. Again, if you can, please donate. I know they need your help. And also, I forgot to mention earlier that their current push is for youth. So they're gathering resources. It doesn't sound like nationally they're that interested in helping, but gathering local resources to go in the street and find youth who are homeless and try to help them get off the street. So thank you for anything you can offer. Thank you to Kit, Rodrigo, and Roger. Such a pleasure.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Fela.
Yeah, thank you, Fela, for making this possible on the tech side. And what an honor to be with everyone. Thanks for your time and have a great evening.